Hello everybody, welcome back to the Yotso Tech Tracks YouTube channel. I'm going to make a couple of videos for everybody or anybody who's interested regarding anything automotive, especially this 2016 Ram 1500 truck I have. This is basically my daily driver slash weekend getaway vehicle for camping, trailering, overland adventures, off-road adventures, campsites, you name it. Anything to take the family in, just to go near or far, on-road, off-road. And it's going to be one vehicle that can basically do it all. Fit the family, pull a camper, haul enough cargo for a couple of days worth of food, water, electricity, just anything you might need for basically anywhere camping. I'd like to take this opportunity to do a roughly 20,000 kilometer update on this truck. I'm going to be working night shift for the next little bit, so I'm on my way down to work. So I thought I'd take this opportunity to make videos for you guys. Just anything automotive related, especially to this truck, or anything related to it. Basically with camping, things I purchased, what works, what doesn't work, you name it. Basically anything the consumer might be finding useful about information regarding overlanding, camping, and basically touring around the country. So this vehicle right now has approximately 21,000 kilometers. As I mentioned in previous videos, if you're new to this channel, I did not buy this truck brand new, but with very, very low mileage. So it is 2021 January right now, and I've had this vehicle for a couple of years in the family. Previously, my father was driving this, and now I took over driving it every day. So we were the second owners, and pretty much we had nothing gone wrong with it so far. There are a couple of things I'd like to get into, just little minor things, but so far this truck has been solid. But I expect that to be at 21,000 kilometers. It doesn't matter what car, truck, vehicle you have. You shouldn't have any major problems under less than a 5-year-old vehicle with this much mileage. So 5 years old, 20,000 kilometers, that would make roughly 5,000 kilometers a year of service, which is not a lot. Again, this vehicle is used mainly in the city, sometimes on the highway for day-to-day getting around, doing errands, going to work, taking the kids to school and back, and so on and so forth. The basics on it are, it's got the 5.7 liter V8 Hemi. It's got the 65 RFE automatic transmission. It is part-time 4-wheel drive. It is a crew cab with the big doors, 5'7" bed, and it's basically a tradesman edition. Nothing major, no special options. This is exactly the vehicle we were looking for when we were looking for one of these Rams, because for myself, I find no reason to basically pay twice as much money for the same vehicle with the same major options, and the rest of the money would go to options such as sunroofs or leather interior or a navigation system. Those things I really don't care for, because a lot of those I prefer to add them myself, and I prefer to go with aftermarket electronics such as my own navigation, anything like that, gadgets, gizmos. I like to add those in aftermarket. I prefer those in many ways to the factory setup, because I find it more user-friendly. Just a personal opinion, but I've gotten used to navigating through an iPhone, through a tablet, and it's easier than to have to adjust, for example, to the Ram Uconnect system. Nothing wrong with it, it's just personal opinion. I would rather get the base model with the powertrain I'm looking for and go from there. So this vehicle, we did already 3 oil changes. I always change the oil minimum once a year, and I've switched it as soon as we got it to fully synthetic Mobil 1. I run a 5W20, sometimes a 0W20, whichever is available in my local Walmart. I usually get them. As mentioned in other videos, I do have a remote oil filter. I am running a large capacity high filtration Mobil 1 filter, just because The oil filter, I prefer to mount it somewhere where it's easier to get to, less messy when I drain it, and it does hold more oil. Also, I've mentioned in other videos, I did add an engine oil cooler, which does help for removing heat from the engine oil. This engine from the factory does have piston squirters, which is basically a full flow filtration system of clean oil spraying on the underside of the pistons to keep everything cool, keep the detonation low. So the oil does get hot because you're cooling basically the bottom side of the pistons, and on top of those is of course the combustion happening. So you're basically cooking the oil. This engine does run hot with the engine oil, which is the reason I've gone to that. There's other videos, you can check it out on my site, which cooler I've done. Again, that is completely personal research, and all the parts are readily available on the shop, on the shelf, anywhere you can get them. Amazon, places like that. Moving back from there, this does have the 6-speed automatic transmission. I prefer this transmission compared to the 8-speed automatic ZF, which was available for this model year. I prefer something that's old, tried and tested, and this transmission in one way or another has been, I believe, on the market since 1999. I believe it was called the 545 RFE. It debuted in the Jeep Grand Cherokee with the 4.7 liter overhead cam engine, and it does take the torque of the Hemi engine. I believe the transmission has an input rating of around 410, 20, or roughly 430 pound-feet of torque, which is basically adequate for the Hemi. In factory tune, in factory trim, this transmission should last the life of the vehicle without having to worry about falling apart. It is not something that's in some vehicles, it's the weak link. It does offer pretty much heavy duty capacity in this vehicle, in a half-ton truck. For what you can push, pull, haul with this vehicle, it shouldn't be any problem at all. Once again, this is my personal vehicle, so I do always do automatic transmission, flush and drain filters every 50,000 kilometers. That is just a personal opinion. Clean oil, never hurt anything, and any transmission Achilles heel is heat. So the fluid does get broken down, and if you change the fluid, clean oil lubricates better, cushions, cools, cleans, all that good stuff. The rest of the powertrain, once again, I keep to the personal practice of 50,000 kilometer drain and fills. I'm going to be draining the transfer case and the front and rear differentials. I will be most likely going with factory fill transfer case fluid. I believe it takes the Mopar ATF Plus 4, the same as the transmission fluid. As a side note, on the transmission, I have never switched or deviated from factory fill. Again, the Mopar ATF Plus 4 is a fully synthetic fluid. I see no reason to switch to any other fluid, but there are some benefits to, for example, switching differential fluids to something like an AMSOIL, extreme pressure lubricant, whatever this vehicle needs. I haven't looked up the specs yet, but it should be something like a 75W90 or something along that, high pressure, extreme pressure lubricant. I've had good experience with previous vehicles, and there's no special requirement in the axles. It does not have a limited slip, so you can run pretty much any extreme pressure lubricant. I usually get those again when they're on sale. It's not a big deal. It's about $10 a liter. It should take about a couple of liters front and rear, so cheap insurance policy. Also, the transfer case fluid, as I mentioned, it should be Mopar ATF Plus 4, the same as the transmission. It is just a regular automatic transmission fluid that goes into those. The rest of the vehicle is pretty much stock as far as the powertrain goes, and I'm very happy with this powertrain choice. As I mentioned, this is the one I was actually looking to get. I told my father to look into this one specifically. I have no experience with the Pentastar V6. I came from a Jeep Wrangler JK, which did have the older 3.8 liter V6. So personally, I have no experience with the Pentastar, but again, this vehicle is going to be loaded as far as the payload, as far as towing, so the little bit extra power of the V8 does come in handy. I'm compared to the V6. The engine doesn't have to struggle as much. It does provide around almost 100 extra horsepower and over 100 extra pound-feet of torque. So the engine runs quieter, smoother. It doesn't have to rev as high, and that's the reason I prefer the V8. I don't necessarily have any interest in getting a diesel in this vehicle. We had diesels in the past before, and modern day diesels, in my opinion, I am an automotive technician, so if anybody's interested, this is just a personal opinion, but how I use the vehicle on short drives, a diesel does not make sense to me, as far as the extra expense of purchasing it, maintaining it, fluid changes, oil changes, fuel filters, so on and so forth. Modern day diesels have a very tight emission standards in North America, especially where I live in Canada, and they do have to have very strict exhaust pollution control. So one of the reasons I prefer to stay away from that, because this V8 Hemi is very simple in design. It is not direct injected. I don't want something that's direct injected. I don't want something that has a turbocharger. I don't want something that has a supercharger. I don't want a high stress engine. I prefer to have something that's an older design, such as a port fuel injection in this Hemi. It is very simple design. It is very low stress, and parts are very cheap. The engine makes adequate power. It does have cylinder deactivation from the factory, so that is something that's apparently good for fuel economy. I've had no problems with the MDS, it's called, I believe, multi-displacement system, as called by Chrysler. It's very seamless. It does have an eco light on the dashboard, and it lets the driver know when the system is working in 4-cylinder mode or V8. The basic operation of the engine is there is a solenoid that is oil pressure activated, and the solenoid is controlled by the ECM. And 4 of the 8 cylinders, the hydraulic lifters, are going to be basically, there is a little pin inside. When that oil pressure moves the pins, those 4 cylinders, basically the hydraulic lifters do not push the push rods, and the valves are basically fully closed when the piston is traveling up and down. So those cylinders that are not working are basically air springs. It's compressing the air on compression, and then it's going to be releasing that tension on the down travel. So basically there's going to be no not much power loss from pumping losses, and in this engine particularly, that setup is going to be working on one bank of the engine. The middle 2 cylinders are going to be freewheeling, you can say, and on the other bank, the front and the rear cylinders. So it's going to be a V4 when it runs in 4-cylinder mode. This engine is very smooth, 4-cylinder or 8-cylinder mode. I have never noticed any hiccups, vibrations, shaking, or hesitations, anything like that when it does go from 4 to 8-cylinder mode. It's just a small light on the dashboard that lets you know what's happening. But like I said, it is completely imperceptible to the driver, and it is nothing you would notice, nothing you would ever even feel if you're not looking at the dashboard. How reliable that system is going to be in the future, I cannot say, but it is a pretty simple design, and it should be nothing to worry about. It does rely on a specific viscosity of oil, which is one of the reasons in this engine it is required to not deviate too much from the viscosity of the factory fill. Once again, I've gone to Mobil 1, that's just a personal opinion. It is not a Group 4 synthetic, it is a Group 3 synthetic, which is still considered a synthetic in North America. It is not the best oil, but for running this vehicle with once-a-year oil changes maximum, that oil stands up plenty well. I have never done any oil analysis on any of those oils I've used in the past, but reading from other people and their experiences, running about maximum 5 to 10,000 kilometers a year, the oil should be absolutely no problems in the engine if the engine is healthy, which again, 20,000 kilometers on the engine, it is barely broken. As I also mentioned in other videos, I did purchase another full-size wheel, full-size tire. This vehicle did have the spare tire mounted underneath. It did have a factory OEM size, full-size spare tire, but the rim was steel instead of alloy as in the other 4. So from the auto wreckers, I did purchase an extra alloy rim that was straight and true. It was from a wrecked car, but that wheel was still perfectly fine. I believe one corner was hit on that truck, and the truck was a write-off. But the other rim that I purchased, it wasn't expensive. It's matching the other ones. One mistake I've made, I bought a cheap tire pressure monitor for that. It did work for a very short time, but then it just let go. And when that wheel is on the surface of the vehicle, the tire pressure light does come on, because once again, it's a cheap tire pressure sensor. And next time I'm going to be rotating the tires, most likely I'm going to get a OEM spec tire pressure sensor to make sure the system is working. Other than that, this vehicle has been solid. It drives very smoothly, decent fuel economy for what it is. It is a full-size pickup truck. Again, 4-wheel drive V8. It weighs about 6,000 pounds, so it does use around between 10 to 15 liters per 100 kilometers in my case. I drive mostly in the city, so it is closer to the 15 liters per 100 kilometer, but it is no worse than that 2011 Jeep Wrangler I had, which did have a 6-cylinder engine. So for what this is, this truck does have about twice the power of that V6 Jeep, and to get roughly the same fuel economy is pretty much no complaints at all. The one issue I did have with this vehicle from the previous owner, the sound system that was installed in this vehicle was basically, it was drawing electricity for the subwoofer amplifier from, one second, I need to go around this garbage truck. A lot of traffic at night. Where was I? The electricity for the aftermarket sound system, which this truck did have, was being piggybacked off of a point where it did make the lightning symbol come on in this vehicle. Basically, it's similar to a check engine light, and in that case, the vehicle does go into a limp-in mode. I never got it diagnosed, but from my experience and research into the problem, this vehicle, such as many new vehicles, it does have a smart alternator where it is not charging all the time. It does cut out, controlled by the computer from time to time. So that system was not happy with having extra power drawn from that specific source, which is one of the reasons I have gone to an additional battery. I do have an auxiliary battery in this vehicle. You can look at videos about my installs on my site if you're interested. Just a quick recap, I do have starting batteries, one front, one rear. They run in parallel, and I have one deep cycle battery, which is going to be running a refrigerator in the summer full-time in the vehicle. It's a portable refrigerator, and also off that battery is running the aftermarket sound system. And that battery is being charged by I believe it's a CTEK D250S battery charger, which is maintaining that battery. So the factory electrical system is completely stock, and since I have removed that electrical issue, this vehicle has had no problems whatsoever. It runs flawlessly, and it is reliable as anything else. Once again, for this truck, I have zero brand loyalty against any vehicle in the family. Previously, we did have Toyotas, GMC, Ford. This is the first Chrysler product as far as the pickup truck, and once again, the reason we chose this one instead of the other ones, because it was discounted heavily, and it is basically everything we need and nothing we don't. It does everything as far as a family vehicle. It has capabilities to push, to pull, to tow, to haul, to seat the family comfortably. It is a 6-passenger vehicle, so this truck works great as an all-around everyday vehicle. In the winter time, I have to drive this in the snow, which is the reason 4-wheel drive was essential, because sometimes the streets are not plowed that well, and it makes it a little bit of a challenge for me to get around. Again, I've had this vehicle for a couple of years now in the family, so winter timing is not a problem, especially with these Goodyear Wrangler Duratracs I've installed. They are an all-season / winter tire. They do have the mud and snow rating as well as the mountain symbol with the snowflake in the middle, so this is equivalent to a proper winter tire, and winter traction has been no problem. Wet traction is flawless. Handling in the dry, in the dirt, no complaints at all. This is a very good all-around tire. It is actually one of the best tires you can get for these trucks. I believe the big competitor to this Goodyear Wrangler DuraTrack is the VF Goodrich All-Terrain KO. I believe that is Key Benefit Off-Road. That's what the KO stands for. Both tires are good. Both tires are great. And the reason, again, I purchased these tires because at the time they were discounted. They are basically a 33-inch tire. Factory tires on these trucks were about 31.5, thereabouts. So it is a larger diameter, but it still fits within that 5% margin of not having to recalibrate the speedometer. According to my GPS, it is still almost spot on. So the speedo is still very accurate. The odometer is accurate, of course, because of that reason. So I've had to have no programmer for tuning it according to different tire sizes, even though it is a slightly larger tire. Furthermore, with this truck, it is very simple. It is nothing high-tech on it. It is the last, pretty much, of the V8 engines with simple port fuel injection, no forced induction. It does have a cast iron block, which I really want to have. I don't want to have an aluminum block engine for problems I've had in the past regarding cast iron blocks. In my opinion, are very strong, very durable, and they don't have problems with porosity. They do eventually have a head gasket problem. Any engine that has a cast iron block and an aluminum head is going to have head gasket problems because those two metals are dissimilar and they expand at different rates. So eventually down the road, many hundreds of thousand kilometers perhaps, if this engine ever needs an overhaul, the head gaskets will be replaced, but it is not common on this engine. It is a very reliable design. This engine has been pretty much on the market for years and years and years, and it is tried and true and tested, and no complaints about it whatsoever. Well, I'm almost at work. I need to end this video right now. If any of you have any questions, comments, if you're interested in getting one of these trucks, it is a very nice vehicle. It drives as smooth as any other truck I have ever had because of the large tires on it and the big sidewalls. It does absorb the bumps very smoothly. I'm not sure if you can pick up any of the noise in the audio, but I do drive on very rough roads getting to work, and the huge sidewall on these tires make this almost ride like a Cadillac or a Rolls-Royce. The little bit of a noise in the car is because I do have a lot of loose cargo right now. The refrigerator's in the front middle seat. I do have child seats unsecured. Just I'm moving things around every day if I have free time. So with that being said, this truck is very nice. It is one of the nicest vehicles we ever had in the family. It is everything we need, nothing we don't. It is very simple, easy to fix, easy to repair. If it does strand you, which every vehicle will sooner or later, it will break down. Everything mechanical wears out. It will not cost an arm and a leg to fix. In North America, these vehicles are very cheap, very easy to source parts from, and you can basically fix it for not much money at all. This was Yozo with Yozo Tech Tracks YouTube channel. Once again, if you like this video or you're looking for any other ones like it, please give it a thumbs up, write a comment. I will respond whenever I can. And thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye-bye.